Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara's out right now, and today we are checking out the Twosun 162, the Predator. Now, this is one of my favorite Twosuns. I love this model, and we have a lot of talking about why this is such an amazing knife, and I think this is going to be a pretty cool video. So, I want to thank Lavender Pants. Thank you, Lavender Pants, for letting me check yours out. I do have a video on this knife already. I used to own it, but I did give it away to an awesome person in the community. And ever since, even though I'm happy I gave it to him, I have wanted to get another one because this is such a well-made knife. Now, let's get into it. We are going to very, very quickly do a size comparison. It's almost 9 inches, about 8 7/8 with a 4-inch blade. Here it is next to the Spyderco Manix 2, and then here's the XL version. It's basically the same size as the XL version, the XL being a little tiny bit bigger, but basically in between those two. And then we'll just do one more size comparison, which will be the Cold Steel Code 4. A lot of people know this knife, and it's only a little, like a tip bigger than the Code 4. So there you guys go. There's your size comparison. It is a large knife, but an amazing knife at that. Now, I did want to put a nice edge on it. Now, it did come with a factory edge, and it wasn't a bad edge, but it was going to need to be sharpened soon. We'll take a look at its factory edge, and the factory edge still could have went for a little while longer, but it wasn't going to be too long until it needed an edge. And you know, this is the homie Lavender Pants' knife, so I had to take care of him by putting a beautiful edge on this awesome S90V. Now, going through the stones, I used the Neeves stones, and the Neeves stones, they work on a different grit rating. They work like on a micron rating. So I started with my lowest grit, and that is the top one you see, and then all the way down to the 3-2, which would be a polish. Now, I did run into a little issue with contamination. A lot of people don't talk about problems that they run into, but you know, it was an issue I ran into. My stone got contaminated, and what that means is where grit from another stone gets on the surface of one of your polishing stones. This doesn't really matter for your lower grits, but for your higher grits, it absolutely matters. And what'll happen, I'll show you what happened to this, but what happens is where you're putting a polish on an edge or a high grit, and then you have scratches from a low grit on there, and that's what happened. And it's only one scratch, but we'll show it here in a second. Let's take a look at the sharpening really quick. Like I said, I started with the lower grit, went through to the next stone, started sharpening on the next stone. It sharpened up really good, felt really good on the stone. And we're going to talk about in a second why this thing sharpens so easily, because I didn't have to remove much steel. Got to the polishing stone, polished up real nicely. Everything felt really good with this knife, sharpening it. And like I said, we're going to talk about why this thing sharpens so easily here in a second. But then I did not strop. You'll notice I did not strop. Why didn't I strop? I did not strop because if you sharpen correctly and you do good burr removal, which I did, you don't necessarily need to strop. And the edge came out really nice. The burr came off really nice. It absolutely did not need to be stropped at all, so we did not. Let's take a look at the edge. Now, the edge looks very beautiful. It is a mirror edge. It's not it's not a full-blown mirror, like it's not an absolute mirror, but it is a mirror edge for sure. You could definitely read off of it, and it looks very beautiful. If it will pop up, you can see how flat and straight the edge is from one side to the other. Looks very beautiful. It's very close to an absolute mirror. I wanted to leave a little bit of grit on there. Doing that leaves the bite that I really want from this S90V. Now let's take a look at what happened with the contamination. You're going to see how uniform the grit pattern is when we really zoom in. Nice and even, and then bam. Oh, come on. All right, there. You see that big scratch right there in the middle? It even goes up onto the blade just a little bit. And that is because a low grit diamond probably got stuck on my stone, or, you know, got transferred onto my stone. But the rest of it looks very good, and the whole entire edge looks beautiful. I will easily get that out. I wanted to show you guys so I could talk about it a little bit. But the rest of the edge looks beautiful. Nice and flat. The grit looks really good. And I'm going to be showing, or I'm going to do a sharpening video here pretty soon, and I'm going to try to answer anybody's questions in that video. So if you have any sharpening questions that you really would love me to answer in that video, if you see this video, leave your question down in the comments below, and I will try to make sure I hit your question in that video. Now, since that's my angle, and I did put it like 17 degrees, and it's like 17, 18 degrees. Now, since it's my angle and everything, I'll have no issue dropping down one stone, getting that scratch out, and then going back to the polishing stone. But I wanted to make sure I showed you guys what happened. That can happen to anybody. So now, this S90V, why did this thing sharpen up so good? Well, any knife can sharpen up really easily, but it's thin, super thin behind the edge. This knife is so slicey, and they did everything correct. Look at that sharpening choil. That is exactly how a sharpening choil should be done. 100%. They left a lot of room to sharpen over and over and over and over and over and over before it'll ever get near that plunge grind. I mean, this thing will probably last for like a lifetime before that happens, which I love. That means this knife was planned on being used. I like that when a knife designer, Wong Designs, designs a blade to do that. It's designed to be used. It's designed to be sharpened. That's incredible. And then since it has the geometry it has, you can get an edge on it incredibly fast because it's so thin behind the edge. And even after sharpening, it's still at 13 thousandths behind the edge. That's incredible. I mean, it's very thin. And like I said, the blade stock is so thin, it's just made to cut. And it's it's rock solid. I mean, this thing is locked up, rock solid. The jimping on the top right here, you really lock into that jimping. The jimping is nice and sharp. Let's take a look at it. Nice and sharp jimping. Your finger just locks right in on that jimping. It feels really good. You can go over it if you really want to push down right here, which also can be very comfortable. You can take advantage of this choil since it is the flipper tab right there if you really want to lock in up there. But it's not a finger choil. It is a sharpening choil, but it's a well done one. But you can use it a little bit. And if you really want to get up there for a push cut, you just go right in front of it. Not a problem. Now the tip, nice thin acute tip. I wouldn't recommend prying with this thing at all, but it is absolutely for precision cutting, which, you know, is the majority of what a knife is used for. So, and when I had mine, I used it and it worked so good. I mean, you can do repeat cuts with this thing and it's enjoyable to use. And that's another reason why I could get to this video so fast, is because I'm already, you know, I already know this knife so well. Now, the titanium is done very, very well. Love the titanium. It has micro milling on it. The carbon fiber, beautifully done. It also has micro milling on it, if you can see that. And then you can also see the fibers running in it. It's such beautiful carbon fiber. This is a great example of the way carbon fiber should look when it's beautifully done. Big hardware T8s like Twosun usually does. The line here is very minimal. Everything is tightly fitted. The only place there's a T6s are the lock bar insert. We'll get to that in a second. The back spacer is well done. You can get texture from this in the hand, especially back here in this spot. It's very sharp jimping back here, and it really does bite your hand in a good way. Like it locks you in when you go to use the flipper tab. Lock bar insert, well done. Now, the access to the lock bar, it's perfect. The action on this is very, like, that's the reason I did a comparison video on this to a Reat K3. And the reason why is because this knife is done so well. Now, there is one bad thing on this thing. There's a couple, but there's one major. Now, the flipping action is so good. The detent is so tuned. It just flips like a dream. I mean, the detent is nice and crisp. The flipper tab does have jimping on it. That is sharp jimping. And it bites your finger. And it snaps out. Man, that thing has a powerful kick from the flipper tab. Then you do have this little spot right there for the reverse flick. And you can pull off a thumb flick. This one has a stronger detent than mine had. But regardless, they both have amazing action. That, like I said, the access to the lock bar is very nice. Now, if you hold up really high, you do hit the detent. But like Twosuns do, it has a reverse detent ramp. So meaning when you unlock it and you hit that detent ball, you can easily push past it. I mean, as if it's not even there. Or if it does hit it, you can just swing past it very easily. Very, very easily. So it's as if that double clutch doesn't even exist. Now, it's very easy to just hold down far enough and never touch it at all, because you do feel it when it does hit it, but it's so easy to get past. But I guess some people might call that a problem but that's only if you're holding up really high on the lock bar. It's easy to not hold that high. Perfectly centered. I mean, this thing is very well done. Now, it is running on ceramic ball bearings that are on a racetrack. That's another reason why this action is so good. Listen to that detent. And what do I mean when I say ceramic bearings on a racetrack? They have washers that have a groove that's carved into it in a circle for the bearings to roll on. So you don't have the bearings rolling on titanium. They're actually rolling on a steel washer on both sides and then on the blade. So that makes for extremely good action. You know, very high-end knives have that. And that's another thing that's so great about Twosuns, is that they put things that you only see on very high-end knives incorporated into their models, and you can get them for such a good deal. Now, some would say that their S90V might not be the best. We'll get into that here in just a second. Let me go over some of the bad things in just a second. Now, the Ergos on this thing is like a dream come true when it comes to Ergos. The Ergos are so amazing. This has some of the best Ergos. I always say it's a lot like a Benchmade Griptilian, because, and better than a Benchmade Griptilian, because I feel the clip on the Benchmade Griptilian, but it's even better than that. This, I'm so locked in. It's a lot like my Shuro Goroth, which I don't have right here right now, but or even similar maybe to like the Rockstud or something. Like the Ergos are just so good on it. There's the Rockstud, but it's very similar almost in a sense where it's just such a neutral grip, but it swells out and then swells back in, like kind of like a teardrop. So your pinky has a good spot right there to really wrap around. That's not too thick. It actually narrows out, but then it swells in the spot where you need the swelling, and then it's thin in the spot where you need it thin for you to pinch it tight. It's so comfortable in the hand. Now, what are some bad things? This clip sucks. I hate this clip. And now the clip, once it's in the pocket, it works great. Pulling out of the pocket, it's great. It does not tear up the pockets or anything like that. But what happens is right here, I'll show you. Let me grab a Hank. Shout out to Brandy Lejour Emporium Hanks. I think they have a buy one, get one free right now if you want to hurry up and go check them out. So, Lejour Emporium. So what happens is when you go to put it in the pocket, it hits right there, and it's hard to get it over because they don't have a ramp there. So it's like hitting a wall. Now with me, if this was mine, if I steal it from Lavender Pants, I'm going to take the clip off and I'm going to shave that face down and put a little angle there. Because on the way out, look at how it works on the way out. Works great. Once it's in the pocket, it works great. Now, another thing is it's not a reversible clip. And then let's look at this. Let's zoom in here. Now, you'll notice the clip is one screw. I do not like one screw clips. That gives the opportunity for movement. Now, I could tighten it down a lot and it'll stop that. But what else would stop that? Now, the good thing about it is that they do have a cutout there. So the clip actually insets into a groove. They don't have one over here because it's not reversible, but there's a cutout for the clip to insert into, which is a good thing. That's why you don't get much shift from this one, which I do like. I'm happy about that. But I do like to see 2 screws on a clip. Not that big of a deal. It's definitely a nitpick because they did put the little insert in to drop down into, but they could have put a better ramp here. The ramp on the way out, like I said, works great. Now, I will say they do have a small bit of weight relief if you really look, like in the top here. So these parts have weight relief on both sides. So that adds to to how light this thing is. It is very light for how big it is. They did add this big old backspacer, which adds a little weight, but regardless. The only other bad thing I would say is that and this is a lot, this isn't just Twosun, this is a lot of companies that are doing S90V and M390. Now, Twosun has just recently been doing M390 and S90V. And almost no company, when they start doing S90V and M390, do it right. They just don't. Now, it's not saying that it's horrible. Their heat treat really isn't that bad. And I know it's improving. So through time now, it's getting better and better. And I've noticed it getting better and better. And I think some of the cut tests have noticed it getting better and better. Now, that's not saying it's great. It's not, especially compared to other companies that have been doing M390 and S90V for a lot longer. But Twosun does seem to listen, and they do try to improve their downfalls. So I think it's something that it's something you don't really worry too much about, because you're still you're getting not the performance of what S90V could possibly do, or M390, but you're also not getting burnt, if you know what I mean. You're getting the price of the knives are so good, especially when you buy them from eBay, that you're still getting better cutting performance than S35. You're still getting better cutting performance than certain steels. Now, and I think they are improving more and more as time goes on. So soon, hopefully, we will see them getting very close to what S90V is supposed to do. Like I said, sharpening it did not feel bad or anything like that. But, you know, as long as, you know, it's not a crap heat treat, it shouldn't. But it's also not to the level it could be. And I'm not saying I know that for sure. I'm saying from the results of what other people's cut tests have shown. Now, some of the heat treats tests, the HRC tests, have done very well. Some, you know, have just been in the normal area, but some have been in the good area. So, but, you know, we'll see as time goes on, but all I'm saying is that you're not getting ripped off when you buy it, because you're not paying what other companies charge for S90V. You're not even paying near that, let alone the grind, the geometry, the beautifully done sharpening choil, the titanium, the carbon fiber, the big T8 hardware. These are the easiest knives to take apart. I have yet to have found a knife that's easier to take apart than a Twosun. Twosuns are their fit and finish and tolerances are so good that when you take them apart and put them back together, they're perfectly centered. They're perfectly centered every time, and that's been my experience. So I that's why I love Twosun so much, because I feel like I'm getting my money's worth out of them. And I don't have a lot of money to spend on a knife that costs twice as much with half the value, if you know what I mean. I love you guys. Thank you, Lavender Pants, for letting me check this out again. Hopefully you guys got something out of this video. Like I said, if you have any comments on sharpening, or you want me to put anything into my sharpening video, let me know down in the comments. I will try to hit your comment, or answer your question, I should say, in my next sharpening video that I think is going to be pretty awesome. It's going to answer a lot of people's questions and hopefully help a lot of people, whether they're beginning sharpening or they are feeling like they're doing really good, because I have a lot of topics, or lots of tips and tricks, and not even tips and tricks, but just a lot of questions I'm going to answer in that video and also show. I love you guys. Peace!